Okay, this is the Pressure Pro float line system. The Pressure Pro float line system comes with a 6-foot integrated bungee. The coming standard the way it is absolutely perfectly rigged for pargo, grouper, amberjacks, cobias, yellowtails, and fish of that nature, to about 75 to 90 pound fish and below. It's a really fantastic rig that way. Completely set up with the clutch to a buoy. The clutch now will allow you to fight your fish and stretching out that bungee when you're collecting the fish. It also works really well when a grouper or a snapper or a pargo will rock up. At that point, you can crank down on the clutch until it tombstones the float, allowing the float to go almost underwater. That'll stretch the bungee to about the 6-foot bungee to about 18 feet. And that puts an adequate amount of pressure on the grouper or the snapper in the hole, and every time he tries to readjust his gills, it'll pull him back out of the cave. But what I wanted to show about the Pressure Pro is some multiple different ways to rig this. So that is what I'm going to show you next. With the Pressure Pro system, you can take the same float line clutch, and with the float line coming back outside of the clutch, you can hook that to a 10-foot bungee. And that 10-foot bungee will now hook to a secondary float, and then the clutch will still hook right back to your primary lead float. So now there's 10 feet essentially in between your two floats on a multiple system, making this really, really good for yellowfin tunas and pelagics. On the front of your Pressure Pro, you would take one more 10-foot bungee, and all you have to do is daisy chain these together or lark's head them through. You can use a tuna clip too if you prefer. This is just a little bit cleaner of a setup and a little bit lighter in the water. So you'll now have a 16-foot lead bungee for your yellowfin tuna to your Pressure Pro float system. Your Pressure Pro float system now comes through the clutch, and both of your bungees would be engaged. So you have one when the fish makes his initial run. He'll pull the first float underwater, which would be an atmosphere float, preferably. Then there's your secondary bungee becomes in effect with the 10-foot stretch on that. That would stretch to approximately 30 feet before the second float comes into play. And then when you are collecting your fish, as you're pulling it through the float line clutch, it's literally eliminating the back float and the bungee, and it's shortening down on your clutch system the whole way down on your float line system. That being said, when your fish does make a secondary run, the float line never comes out of the equation with your backup float, and then the bungee would come back into play if the fish made a secondary run. And that would be how you set up the Pressure Pro system for yellowfin tuna.